do it is for.
But that's not a good enough reason.
Robyn Brown says phones in pockets are bad for your body, but here's what's really going on. In a family already drowning in arbitrary rules and selective enforcement, Robyn Brown has once again distinguished herself as the reigning queen of misplaced anxieties.
He's putting his phone in his pocket.
Saul, it's not good for your body.
The latest gem? Forbidding her son from placing his phone in his pocket because, brace yourself, it's not good for your body.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are great, but clean mail with alcohol wipe?
Yes, the same woman who once spearheaded the family's draconian COVID regime now extends her authority to pocket placement. Phones in pockets are apparently a hazard, though millions of people worldwide seem to survive this reckless behavior daily. Watching her in action, one realizes her words are often irrelevant. The truth is written all over her strained facial expressions and nervous tics. The concern seems rooted not in medical reality, but in internet-fueled paranoia, perhaps borrowed from the darker corners of the manosphere, where male virility is treated as a fragile, endangered species. If this was about health, it would extend to her daughters. If it was about parenting, Cody, ever allergic to responsibility, might have spoken up himself instead of tattling to her like a child reporting to the hall monitor.
My kids are blaming Robyn for making the rules.
But in this household, rules are never the family's. They are Robyn's alone. The theater of it all is exhausting. Cody plays the doting father, fussing with Saul's hair as though the boy hasn't mastered a brush by now, while Robyn frets over invisible radiation and lurking infertility. It's the perfect picture of a family curated for cameras, polished on the surface, bizarre once you look closer.
Because I don't want people knowing I'm a hoarder.
Even their home resembles an overstuffed junk drawer, fitting since their rules are just as cluttered. This pocket paranoia is hardly their first brush with pseudoscience.
But there was only a microwave, and I don't have microwave skills.
Longtime viewers may remember Christine's Season 1 crusade against microwaves, radiation, you see, and her refusal to own a toaster lest it combust spontaneously. The Brown household has always been fertile ground for technophobic superstition dressed up as wisdom. Of course, none of this has any grounding in fact. The medical consensus is clear. There is no verifiable evidence that phones in pockets cause cancer, infertility, or any of the other specters conjured by late-night internet searches. At most, a handful of studies with limited scope raise questions about heat exposure and sperm motility, and even those are riddled with caveats. But why bother with research when you can pass down myths like family heirlooms?
Solomon, truly, you guys are supposed to be 6 feet apart.
In the end, Robyn's rules are less about health and more about control. Phones in pockets become symbols of independence, potential friends, texts, or connections that might compete with her influence. Better to keep the children's devices, and by extension, their autonomy, at arm's length. After all, nothing says maternal devotion quite like monitoring pocket placement. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If polygamy were legalized, the practice might collapse on itself.
So, when I married Cody, I really did feel a calling. I had a very strong spiritual witness that I was supposed to be married to Cody.
The current spectacle of Janelle seeking a spiritual release is perhaps the most fitting end to a relationship that was, from the start, unequal by design. The notion of spiritual divorce at least grants her the sense of finality within her faith. Yet it is telling that so much weight is still placed on the legal side of marriage, as if a certificate ever guaranteed fairness. Being legally bound to a man in a community property state does not, in practice, stop him from maneuvering around joint ownership.
I don't need anything from the property.
Cody Brown demonstrated this vividly when he cut Robyn off from any claim to properties not bearing her name and preemptively blocked Christine from exerting ownership before detaching himself from her house entirely.
That each party herein should waive the right, interest, in community property ownership.
The larger irony is how poorly contracts are understood, or even read, by the women themselves. Christine's own book contains claims about ownership and timing that contradict county records. This blind faith in the family over legal documentation has left the wives perpetually vulnerable. Deeds, after all, are far more decisive than sentimental vows, and a methodical husband can cut a spouse out of assets with alarming ease. Court orders are no miracle cure either, particularly when debts come into play. The lesson is simple: educate yourself or be exploited. If polygamy were legalized, it would almost certainly dismantle itself. Legality would shift power away from men, who thrive on women's ignorance of their rights, and toward the very wives and children they have long kept dependent. Once plural marriage stops serving as a tool of male control, its allure evaporates.
People working together, not having a whole bunch of children.
Legal recognition would also eliminate the convenient welfare loopholes. No more women filing as single mothers while sharing resources with a patriarch who fathers dozens of children. All household income would be counted, and perhaps then, families would think twice before multiplying beyond what they can feed. But wishful thinking meets grim reality. The culture of polygamy is not guided by logic such as, have as many children as you can afford. It is driven by dogma: breed endlessly and trust God, or the government, to provide. Early Brown family life was emblematic of this, with children undernourished and surviving on stale bread. Elsewhere, polygamous families rely on dumpster diving, church charity, and child labor, sometimes pulling children from school to work fields or marry young daughters off to reduce household costs. Legalization would not end abuse. Men determined to dominate would simply retreat further into spiritual marriages, keeping the facade while sidestepping accountability.
She had a heart defect and several other things that were not going right in her body.
Still, legalization would strip away one of their strongest weapons: fear. The constant threat of children being taken away or of the family being exposed as illegal sustains male control.
No, they just drove by again. Rebecca just saw we had police drive by again.
Remove that, and the balance of power shifts, even if only slightly, toward the women.
Janelle and I have 6 kids.
The most unspoken truth is this: 6 children and years of marriage should entitle a woman to real assets. Instead, the Browns' wives operated under misplaced trust, believing that being in the family was protection enough. Meanwhile, their children's survival often depended on welfare assistance, the very system polygamy loves to exploit while condemning in others.
Cody's a great father. The moms are amazing women.
And then there is Caleb, Maddie's husband, who represents a refreshing anomaly in this circus. He makes no secret of his disdain for Cody, earning the title of the 5th wife who never was. Like several of the official wives, he openly despises the man, and with good reason.
That was a really, really bad thing, but I don't feel like it was Cody's house.
Cody's treatment of Janelle, Christine, and even Maddie's brothers has been consistently contemptuous. Caleb's stance is hardly mysterious. It is the natural reaction to a man who has broadcast his arrogance and cruelty for the world to see. Ultimately, Janelle is right. Legalizing polygamy would not bolster the practice, it would expose and unravel it. The only thing sustaining men like Cody is women's fear, ignorance, and misplaced faith in a system built to keep them small. Strip away the secrecy, the welfare loopholes, and the spiritual scare tactics, and the empire collapses under its own absurdity. TLC knows you hate Cody and Robyn, and that hatred is exactly what's keeping the show alive. TLC seems determined to test the limits of its audience's gag reflex by keeping Cody and Robyn front and center.
Then to have her sort of talk me to the kids, I kind of feel like...
Watching Cody unravel on camera, frothing with rage, spewing venom, and gesturing like a man in the middle of a full-scale breakdown, isn't just unpleasant, it's disturbing. His presence has become less reality television and more public safety announcement on what happens when unchecked ego meets a camera crew. And then there's Robyn, the ever-loyal sidekick. One moment she's clutching her pearls over the mere mention of sex, the next she's coyly dropping the word as though she's scandalizing Victorian society.
Is for.
But that's not a good enough reason.
By the end, she can barely choke out "sss" before downgrading it to "that thing." as if syllables alone could corrupt the nation's morals.
Let me use your knife because I was licking mine.
Their dinner table chatter about licking each other was enough to send viewers lunging for the remote. Uncomfortable doesn't begin to cover it. The tragedy is that there is no redemption arc here.
I know that Wyoming was absolutely the right place to bury him.
Not even the passing of their son Garrison could jolt Cody into self-reflection or change. If that seismic event couldn't pierce his narcissism, nothing will. As he once so eloquently advised others, perhaps he and Robyn should just go away.
Are you gonna move on and find a new husband?
Yes.
Meanwhile, the rest of the family, Christine forging ahead with her independence, Janelle navigating new paths, Mary hanging on by a narrative thread, and the kids growing into their own are the only reasons the show still has a heartbeat. Without them, the series would flatline. Yet the irony is that a spin-off featuring only the sane branches of the family would likely bore audiences to tears. This is the paradox TLC seems to understand. The show survives not because of heartfelt moments, but because viewers love to hate. Reality television thrives on villains, and Cody and Robyn have become caricatures so bizarre, so grotesque, that turning away feels impossible. Disingenuous, bizarre, unaccountable, they are the cringe factor incarnate. So the question remains, is the network exploiting the audience's distaste, or simply too stubborn to let go of its most polarizing couple? Either way, TLC knows the formula. Love them, loathe them, or hate watch them. The circus doesn't stop, and clearly, neither do the ratings. Robyn Brown swears she's never lived monogamy, so who exactly gave her 3 children? Robyn Brown has always excelled at rewriting her own history, but her latest revisionist performance deserves an award. With a straight face, she claims she's never lived monogamy.
Cody and I never chose to live monogamy.
An impressive assertion, considering her lengthy first marriage, to a single man no less, produced 3 children and lasted the better part of a decade. Apparently, those years don't count.
I had marriage proposals, I had people I dated.
She frequently leans on the tired tale of men tripping over themselves to propose marriage, yet somehow every suitor just happened to be staunchly monogamous. The image she paints is almost comical.
Just some guys, different men at different times, said, I'd marry you in a heartbeat.
A parade of hopefuls lined up outside her window, each clutching a boombox and an engagement ring. This alleged onslaught of admirers sounds less like real life and more like a bad romantic comedy script. Then there's the peculiar way she discusses her ex-husband.
She took her purity.
According to Robyn, her purity was stolen by him, a grotesque narrative she shared with her minor children, as though demonizing their father would somehow strengthen her new family bond. What it actually did was expose her willingness to manipulate reality in order to elevate herself and vilify others.
Qualified, worthy individuals.
Her contradictions pile up. If all these supposed proposals came from church members, then why did she dismiss them on the grounds that they rejected plural marriage? If they weren't from church, then the story collapses under the weight of its own absurdity. Either way, the narrative serves a single purpose: to inflate her desirability and convince Cody he landed a prize so coveted that so many men wanted her first.
I believe that Cody and I were supposed to be together.
In reality, Robyn's monologues rarely withstand even the lightest scrutiny. They function less as truth and more as a carefully constructed performance. A performance designed to make her the perpetual victim, the eternal ingenue, and, most importantly, Cody's most valuable conquest. Here's the shocking part. Most of what you call trolling is just sheer lack of self-awareness. The latest episodes seem determined to make viewers wonder, are Cody and Robyn trolling us, or is production simply dangling bait? From the suspicious close-up of an overflowing junk drawer stuffed with yellow pencils,
Vitamins, salt, the yellow and the green. Try not to spill, bud.
to vitamins solemnly explained as, brace yourself, vitamins. It all reeked of intentional winks to the audience. Add a doll eerily watching the scene, the garish $25,000 engagement portrait proudly displayed, and Robyn's oddly rigid hair curl. And one could almost believe the Browns have a secret deal with social media to keep the internet fed. But let's be honest, it isn't Cody masterminding subtle satire. It's the producers.
All right, did you have a great day at school?
Yes, I did.
Did you have a great day at school?
They know exactly which bizarre crumbs fans will seize upon. Why else highlight a poorly blurred Mercedes logo or indulge in close-ups of cabinet supplements? Production doesn't need Cody's help. They only need to occasionally nudge him. Picture the exchange.
Some mothers were getting kids ready for school. And
Cody proudly suggesting, "Why not film me driving the kids to school? Show I'm just a normal dad." Cue producers gleefully agreeing, knowing full well his flashy Mercedes convertible will land as relatable as a yacht on food stamps.
Still, much of the so-called trolling is less diabolical scheme and more staggering lack of self-awareness. Pencils are not a covert message. They're school supplies. The dolls have been hanging around for years. The painting wasn't hung for irony. It was an earnest splurge. And as for Robyn's hair curl, sometimes a curl is just a curl. These aren't Easter eggs so much as the couple's naturally odd aesthetic, packaged by production into a highlight reel of absurdity. Of course, none of this stops the editing team from leaning in to fan service.
I'm not gonna post anything on social media because he's like, maybe we should post something.
They know the fandom thrives on spotting hidden clues, whether it's Christine's social media digs or Cody eating off the tip of his knife like a medieval warlord. Sister Wives has long since evolved into a symbiotic game. The family produces ridiculous behavior, production magnifies it, and the audience delights in dissecting it. The real joke isn't whether Cody is trolling us, it's that the Browns and the cameras no longer need to try. The comedy writes itself. Cody's disgust for Mary isn't about catfishing. It's about his fragile ego being shattered.
He wasn't in the rotation.
Few relationships in reality television have disintegrated with the kind of venom Cody Brown reserves for Mary. Unlike his vaguely dismissive attitude toward Christine or his lukewarm buddy dynamic with Janelle, his feelings for Mary drip with outright contempt. The question is, why? The roots trace back to the beginning.
I was too exhausted to sit there and try and delegate.
Cody expected a pliant, keep-sweet wife in Mary, submissive, compliant, and quietly devoted. Instead, he married someone who dared to have wants, needs, and opinions of her own. Worse, she proved difficult to control. Cody, who seems to believe his emotional orbit is the only one that matters, quickly soured on the realization that Mary was not a satellite in service to his ego.
It's just, yeah, you just have all the emotions and you just wonder.
The early years offered no shortage of tension. Their courtship was rushed, their marriage shadowed by drama, and Cody was already drifting toward Janelle in a manner that looked suspiciously like infidelity. The choice to marry Janelle on Mary's birthday, an idea that required Mary's mother to intervene, only underscored the level of disregard.
This is a 4-against-1 conversation.
Mary's justified anger at this period has since been reframed by Cody as evidence of her unkindness and temper. Translation: she refused to quietly endure humiliation. Over time, the cracks widened into chasms. Cody fell out of love, but instead of leaving, Mary stayed, an unforgivable act in his mind. Her refusal to walk away meant he could cast her as both villain and prisoner, the stubborn reminder of a relationship he no longer wanted. The infamous catfish scandal was the final nail. Cody initially attempted a weak defense, but once recordings surfaced of Mary praising her fake suitor as taller, better-looking, and superior to him, the wound to his fragile ego became irreparable. The man who insists on being the center of the universe could not stomach being compared unfavorably, let alone dismissed as inadequate.
Like, he doesn't smile, he doesn't laugh, he doesn't joke.
From there, disdain hardened into loathing. The cameras captured his glances of pure disgust, his tone dripping with contempt.
The betrayal wasn't just that Mary had sought affection elsewhere. It was that she had publicly exposed his greatest fear, that he was neither desirable nor impressive. For a man whose sense of self rests on dominance, that kind of blow was unforgivable. Cody's relationship with Mary also became a convenient dumping ground for the failures of plural marriage.
But when, it came to her joining the family,
he blamed her for early struggles, cast her as the wedge between himself and Janelle, and conveniently overlooked his own part in their collapse. Mary became not just his first wife, but his lifelong scapegoat, shouldering the weight of disappointments he refuses to own.
Basically, from the time when Mary and I got married.
And yet, it's precisely because he once loved her that his fury cuts so deep. Unlike his friendships with Janelle or his long-standing disdain for Christine, Mary was the wife he chose, the one he called his soulmate, the one who had the power to wound him. Losing her, especially to an illusion that revealed his inadequacies, was a humiliation he has never forgiven.
But she's free, and I'm insulted by her expressions.
In the end, Mary represents both Cody's original hope and his greatest failure. She was the proof that he could love, and the reminder that his love was never enough to sustain respect, kindness, or accountability. That duality has left him trapped in bitterness, lashing out at the woman who dared to disappoint him by being human. Never believe the myth that the sister wives all shared money equally, because the truth is uglier than you think. If there's one mystery that desperately needs resolving in this ongoing family circus, it's the fate of the finances.
I've got to make something happen. I want my money out of it because I have this other project I want to work on.
The suspicion that Cody kept control of the so-called family pot is less a theory than a glaring inevitability. Every clue points to a man who treated communal earnings not as shared resources, but as his personal slush fund. Consider the spending trail. Endless tchotchkes, overpriced wall art purchased under the guise of investment, music instruments no one asked for, trailers, and whatever indulgences Robyn and her children desired at the time.
They're renting an Airbnb. I don't think they're...
The infamous scene at Robyn's fire pit, where Cody bellowed at Janelle over the cost of a Christmas Airbnb, could not have been more symbolic. Behind him sat a box boldly labeled fragile, as if mocking the women's precarious financial reality, while he screamed about loyalty and COVID protocols.
If I'm going to sell my house...
Christine's own account confirms that all TLC money went into an LLC Cody controlled, with wives reduced to supplicants who had to request checks for large expenses. She managed to escape with profits from the sale of her house only because his name, by sheer bureaucratic accident, was not on the deed. That small stroke of luck enraged him, a man who would have otherwise demanded half.
The problem is Coyote Pass isn't paid off.
She even relinquished her portion of Coyote Pass, simply too weary to fight him any longer.
Did you see that? Robyn's house is huge.
The inventory of Robyn's McMansion speaks volumes. Lavish decor, Vladimir Kush artwork, statues, crystals, pianos, both acoustic and electric, paint a picture of indulgence on one side, while the other wives struggled to support themselves and their children independently. The Las Vegas years offered the same story. Only Robyn's backyard was landscaped, while the others lived with unfinished dust lots. It doesn't take forensic accounting to know the score. Cody and Robyn enjoyed the spoils, while Mary, Janelle, and Christine quietly realized they were subsidizing someone else's lifestyle.
Cody didn't feel like my boys were being very safe.
Janelle's children in particular seemed destined to carry resentment over their mother being financially shortchanged. Christine, relieved to be free, may consider the lost money a small price for her independence.
The problem here, Christine...
Ultimately, the real scandal is not only Cody's blatant financial abuse, but the other's complicity. Handing complete control of communal funds to a man with no history of fairness or financial prudence was a catastrophic error. If the TLC money had been distributed evenly, each adult would have received their own check, or, at the very least, equal shares from the LLC. Instead, Cody cloaked greed in the language of family.
using it to funnel the majority of resources toward himself and Robyn.
Cody's trusts are fragile.
The women now face the bitter truth. They were not simply victims of neglect, but also of their own misplaced trust. The financial imbalance was not hidden. It was written in every landscaped backyard, every extravagant art purchase, and every box marked fragile stacked behind their so-called leader. Save your spot at this circus. Subscribe now.